Hello friends, many people think HTML and CSS are very easy, so let's not prepare them. And that's my point. What will happen if you are not able to answer a very simple HTML question in an interview? Like I was once asked in an interview, what are semantic elements in HTML? And I said I am a full stack developer, not an HTML developer. So you can understand how was my first impression, right, in interview. So why to take that risk? Let's quickly revise top interview questions in HTML, CSS and Bootstrap. Now let me show you the structure of this course. Here first 7 topics are from HTML starting from the basics, then there are 2 topics from CSS and last topic is Bootstrap. Total 10 topics questions covered in a step by step manner in learning sequence. Okay, this course is primarily for experienced students, but even if you are beginner you can easily understand all the questions. Now let me just quickly show you a sample question. Mostly I will explain with the help of the code for practicality, then diagrams for better understanding, and finally very minimum and to the point theory, so that later you can revise very quickly without even listening to the full explanations. Before starting, those who don't know, I started maintaining a board in my home wall. Here I am putting the comments of subscriber whom my videos helped in getting the offer and cracking the interview. So whenever you get the job or offer, just post a comment, okay? Right now the comment count is around 50 and my target is to correct 1000 comments. You and I can reach our goals by having only one thing, that is by never give up attitude. What is HTML? What are the differences between HTML and HTML5? And what are the advantages of HTML5? First, let's explore HTML. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. What is the meaning of each letter here? Let me first show you a very basic HTML document first. Here in HTML document, hyper stands for the anchor or hyperlink element in HTML. Text stands for the text we provide in our HTML documents using H1, H2, headings, paragraphs, etc. Now you might ask, we also have so many other elements in HTML like the nav, the table, what about them? Actually, when HTML was introduced in 1990s, hyperlink and text were the only main elements in HTML. Therefore, in the name of HTML, only hyperlinks and texts are mentioned. Other elements are introduced later. Now you will ask, what is the meaning of markup language? Markup language means a language that defines the structure of a document using elements like headings, paragraphs, link, lists, etc. Remember just the structure of the document, nothing else. Like a Word document, HTML is also more like a document only. Therefore, HTML is just a markup language. It's not a programming language. A programming language is a language where we define variables and functions to perform some logic or operation, okay? For example, JavaScript, Java, C# are programming languages. But HTML is just a markup language to structure the web page, okay? So finally, what is HTML? HTML, which stands for Hypertext Markup Language, is the standard markup language used to create web pages. Other than HTML, XML is also a markup language which is also used to just structure the document. Now here are the 2 more points about HTML that I already explained actually, but I written it here in the document so that it can be used for a quick revision later. Now let's explore what is the difference between HTML and HTML5 by comparing the codes. First of all, HTML5 is HTML only. Okay, they are same actually. But old HTML was different. Here is the old HTML code which was released up to HTML4. And here is the HTML5 code for the same version or same old HTML, okay? And you can see the differences between them. You can see how the doc type written in our old HTML is very long with version number 4.01. And in HTML5, doc type is just HTML, no 5, nothing is required here. It is short and simple. Also in the new HTML, we have this header section and many more elements which were not there in old HTML. These newly introduced elements in HTML5 makes a HTML document more structured. Alright, the whole point is HTML5 is the fifth and the latest version of HTML. Going forward, whenever I say HTML, that means I am talking about HTML5 only, okay? Finally, let's quickly see the 5 advantages of HTML5 over the old HTML one by one. First is HTML5 introduced new semantic elements like header, nav, article, section, and many more. We will discuss these elements in detail in upcoming questions. Second, HTML5 introduced forms with input types. Okay, for example, type equals to date type, email type, etc. Third, HTML5 supports audio and video by using audio and video elements. Fourth, HTML5 provides mobile compatible code. So not just laptop compatible, but mobile compatible also. The last advantage is writing code in HTML5 is simpler than writing code in the old HTML. We will cover separate questions on all of these advantages in upcoming questions. But now you are like more confident about what is HTML, what is the difference between HTML and HTML5, and what are the advantages of HTML5, right? And confidence is only what matters the most in the interviews. What is the difference between HTML and XHTML? Let's understand by comparing their codes. First, this is the code of HTML, or we can say HTML5. And here is the code of XHTML. First of all, XHTML is not a version of HTML. It's altogether a different and separate markup language for creating web pages. Okay. Actually, XHTML was created before HTML5 to cover some gaps in old HTML. Basically, XHTML is a combination of XML and HTML. At the top, you can see XML version 1.0. Then the doc type and HTML tag is so long here, which is not looking good, right? So basically this combination of HTML and XML has been done to follow some rules from XML in HTML, okay? But then after some time, HTML5 was introduced and launched, which is shorter, simpler, and more powerful than this XHTML. Therefore, XHTML is not so much in use now. The definition is XHTML, which stands for Extensible Hypertext Markup Language, is a markup language that follows the rules of XML, remember, to define the structure of web pages. That is the idea. Now, let's see the three main differences between HTML and HTML. First, HTML or HTML5 has more lenient syntax rule. For example, this image tag does not have a closing tag, and that's okay. It is not recommended, but it will work in HTML. Whereas XHTML follow strict syntax rules like XML. All tags must be properly nested and closed like this image tag. Second difference is HTML is not case sensitive. For example, capital tags like this will work, but again not recommended. Whereas XHTML is case sensitive and only small letter tags will work. The third and last difference is that HTML is widely supported by all the web browsers and web platforms, whereas XHTML has some limited support by browsers. Okay, great. Now you know by heart the differences between XHTML and HTML, right? What is the purpose of doc type in HTML? Here you can see the code for very short and simple HTML5 code. And at the top of it is a doc type HTML statement. What does doc type means here? Doc type, which stands for document type declaration, it specifies the version of HTML. For example, just this doc type HTML means the version is HTML5. Okay, we need not to write here 5, okay, explicitly. Why we need it? because doc type tells the browsers which version of HTML it is and how to interpret the code. So if browser know the version of HTML, then it will behave accordingly to the rules as per the rules of HTML5 only. Okay. We also have some other document types also like this. See here, first doc type line is HTML 4.01 version, which is basically the old HTML. Then the second kind is XHTML 1.0. So there are other versions also, but we are not interested in them anymore. So because now we have the last one and the most preferred one, which is HTML5. In 99% cases, you will see only this document type in the HTML web page. Okay, clear? So that was the answer and the requirement of the doc type in our HTML. Hi, here is a quick notification. If you are the kind of person who does not want to miss anything during their interviews, then in the link in the description you will have one full front-end interview course. First, 100 HTML CSS Bootstrap interview questions with additional advanced topics. Then 200 basic plus advanced JavaScript questions. Even if you are new to JavaScript, you can still understand all the concepts of JavaScript in question answer format. Also, the link to this PowerPoint and PDF interview book is present in the description for revision. Many students were able to crack the interviews by using my courses. If you don't want, no problem. Let's continue again with our next question. Now here is a scenario based very short question. What will happen if you remove doc type HTML from your HTML5? In that case, browsers like Chrome or Edge can still render the page, but they will not able to validate the version of HTML. Therefore, it may lead to some compatibility issues with the SEO or debugging at later point of time. Okay. And the same answer I have also written down here so that it can be used for quick revision later. What is the difference between head and body in HTML? Where to place JavaScript link reference? Again, here is the code for a simple HTML, and here we have two things. One is head and other is body. What is the difference? The answer is head element is where you place all the meta information. Meta information means information about your HTML document. For example, if you have a book, then title of the book, author of the book, and index of the book. This is all the information about the book, right? Not the actual book content. So that is meta information. Similarly, in the head element of HTML, title represents the title of web page. And you can also place here like the style sheets, the JavaScript file references or CSS references. So some meta elements like keywords, description, cat set, I will explain them in another question. So basically the head element is all about the meta information about your HTML. That's it. So similarly, like a book has all its actual content inside it, in HTML also the body element is where you place the actual content of your HTML web page. For example, div tags, h1, paragraph, images, hyperlinks, etc. All these are elements are responsible for containing the actual content of your HTML web page, right? So that was the answer of the first part. Second was where to place the JavaScript link reference. It depends. When the website loads, then first the head will load and then the body will load. Therefore, if you are manipulating HTML elements in your JavaScript functions, okay, then place the JavaScript link at the end of the body section, because until then all the elements will be loaded. Else, if you are not manipulating the HTML elements in your JavaScript function, then just place it inside the head tag. Same has been written here for later revision, later reference and quick revision. What is title tag in HTML? What are the 4 advantages of it? Here is the HTML and the title tag inside it. Definition is very simple. The title tag in HTML is used to define the title of the web page. For example, this is the HTML code and the web page of it looks something like this. In the window title, you will find the exact same title that you have mentioned in your HTML document. In other words, you can also say that the title is like the name of your web page. Now the question is, what are the advantages? 4 advantages are there. First is title is used for window titles. Okay, title element text is displayed in the title window or tab of the browser. Second advantage is SEO. Search engines like Google use the title tag as the main heading for the search results. Okay, so when you type something in Google search box and press search, then first Google will find and match your input text with all the titles of the web pages available with Google, and then the result list will be displayed in front of you. There are other factors for SEO also, but title match with the user input search text is the main one. Third advantage is bookmark, favorite name. Title tag is used as the default name for the bookmarks. Okay. And the last advantage is social media sharing. The title tag is often used as the default title whenever you are sharing any post with anyone. Great. That's all about the information about the title tag. What are meta tags? What are the 5 types of meta tags? Good question. Here you can see the code of a simple meta tag cat set. Definition: meta tags in HTML are elements used to provide metadata or additional information about a web page. 5 types of meta tags we can have like this. Let's quickly understand the purpose of all of these. Here you can see all the meta elements and their attributes. The first tag is cat set, which is important for character encoding. Basically what it does, this specify character encoding means which helps browser to interpret the different characters in the document. This cat set UTF-8 attribute, what it ensure is that characters from different languages will be displayed correctly for your website in the browser. That is the role of this cat set. Different languages it can handle. Okay. Now because many websites have support to multiple languages, right? So that's why it's so important. Second meta tag, viewport, is important for responsive design. Is very crucial for like mobile friendly responsive web designs for various screen size, right? If you remove this tag, then your website can give problems in different mobile screens. Also, I later covers the separate question for all the attributes of the meta viewport element also. Third meta tag is description, which is important for SEO. This provides a description of the content of the page. It is something little bit more than the title. So search engines may use this for the search result. Okay. Now, fourth is the keywords. It is important for the SEO again, but this meta tag nowadays is less importance. Means I think now we don't need it, but yes, I keep it here to just for the information. It's a kind of meta tag. Then the last meta tag is author info. Again, it's a very optional, just to specify the author of the document. Again, this keywords and author are optional, but the first two, the description and the viewport and the cat set, those are very important. Okay, all right, that's the brief something about the meta tags. Great, and congrats on finishing the last chapter. Keep going and never give up on your goals. Until now, you already knew that HTML was like a document, like a Word document. And like a document, it has elements. Okay, like Word have these words, statements, paragraphs. Similarly, HTML also have many elements. And here are the 7 questions about the most important and elements in HTML. What are HTML elements? Span, paragraph, anchor, break. Maybe you already familiar with some of them, but remember, a one-time revision is very important to gain more confidence. Therefore, we will go through them at a very fast pace to revise them quickly. So let's start with the first question. What are HTML elements? What is the difference between an element and a tag? Here is a simple HTML, a simple head element, inside that a title element and a body element, and inside that we have many elements. Now the question is whether these are elements or tags. Suppose here is a paragraph. Here P inside this angular bracket is the beginning, is the opening tag, okay, and slash P at the end is the closing tag. The content between these two tags is called the content or text. Now as a whole, from start to finish, this is what? HTML element. Okay, so tags are just the part of the element. But yes, sometimes we use the name tags and elements, their names interchangeably. Okay, but now you know the reality. Now here is the first conclusion about the elements. HTML elements are the building block of web pages. For example, in this HTML document, it consists of elements only, right? The HTML is root element, this head element, which contains more element, title, then there is a body, which contains H1, all H1 list, paragraph, all these are just elements. So an HTML document is nothing but a combination of various elements only. The second point is that an element consists of a start tag, content, and end tag, explained. The last point is a tag is the specific part of the element that denotes the beginning or end of that element. Therefore, tag in reality is different from element. All right. Now, here is the list of the top 10 most used elements in HTML. In upcoming questions, we will cover the questions on these elements, the most important out of them, okay? But yes, you can now pause the video for 2-3 seconds and just go through them. Great, that's all about the basic of HTML elements and tags. What are the roles and uses of the div element in HTML? This is one of the most important element in HTML. For example, if you see this HTML, here we have two separate and independent H1 and paragraph elements. Now, if you want that both of these elements share a common background color, like light blue, like this is the output. Then what you will do? Which element you will use around these two elements? Answer, you already know, we will use the div as a container outside these two elements. So then we can put the style, we can style the container, this div, as per our requirement, okay? So the definition is that div, which stands for division element in HTML, is a container that is used to group and structure the content on a web page. So basically div is a general purpose element. It is not a semantic element, which I will explain later, but div is for general purpose. Like a paragraph is specifically for paragraphs, right? H1 is for headers, but div is a general purpose, okay? So you can use it for structuring only. So here are the top 3 uses of the div. First, div is used for grouping and structuring the content. It allows you to group related elements together. Like here in the example, we grouped this H1 and P elements under one div container, right? Second is div can be used for styling and layout. Again, apply common styles if you want to apply to multiple elements, then use the div. The third is div element is used for scripting. For example, other scripting language can, like if you can, like JavaScript can access the div elements by their ID or something to manipulate their content on behavior. So it is used for scripting also. Div is important in that sense also. Great. I think now you know what is div, which might be already know, but why div is so important, that you, I think, know now better. What is the difference between div and span element? These are two very similar elements in HTML. Let's see the difference. Suppose this is your HTML. Here you can see the div element, which is used as the container of H1 and P elements. And we already know div is used to group related elements together to provide them a better structure. But if you see here, we are using the span also. The span element in HTML is an inline container. So one is div is container, another is inline container, which is used to apply styles or scripting to a specific section of text or content. In short, you can say that div is a block level element and span is an inline element. And yes, I will share the differences between block and inline elements in upcoming questions. But yes, for now, that's it. And here are the points which I just explained for the later reference. Hey guys, just a reminder, my videos help many candidates in getting jobs, but sometimes they forget to share their success with me. Just like and subscribe and post a comment whenever you get the job or the offer. That is my motivation, okay? What is the role of PABR, image input and button elements? All right, after div and span, these are the top 8 basic elements used in HTML. Maybe you already know most of them, but let's quickly revise them. First one is paragraph elements, which defines the paragraph of text like this. Like we have paragraph in English, the same way we can have paragraphs for single line or multi-line text in HTML. The second element is anchor element, which creates a hyperlink like this. The href attribute specifies the URL where it will be redirected, and where if you click this link, and the element content is the display text of this hyperlink. In this case, display text is link. The third element is BR, which inserts a line break. So whenever you need a line break in paragraph like this or between elements or anywhere else, use the BR element. The fourth element is HR, which creates a horizontal line break like this. Same as BR, but in this case, the horizontal line will be visible and displayed. It is mostly used as a divider between two sections in HTML. And here are the details of these elements if you want to revise them later from the book. Let's move to the next element. The fifth element is EM, which stands for emphasize. It emphasizes the text in italics like this. Okay. Next is the image tag that embeds the image. SRC or attribute, again, specify the image path, and alt attributes alternative text. In an upcoming question, I will explain the need of the alternative text. Now, because I have not added any source file here for abc.jpg, therefore this is the sign of the empty image. Okay. The next element is an input element like this. This is the simplest type of input element inside which user can write something. But yes, there are other input elements like password input, checkbox input, radio button input. So that again I will explain in the upcoming questions. Then the last common element is a button element. This is a clickable button displayed like this. Both these input and buttons elements are mostly used inside the forms, HTML forms only. And here is the list and details of all these elements for quick revision before the interviews. All right, I think now you have a very good idea of all the basic HTML elements, right? What is the role of header, main, section, footer, and address elements in HTML? On every website homepage, there are 5 common things that are present. And for those things, HTML5 has introduced these 5 elements. Now, here is the code for all these elements together. And you can understand the role of these elements even by looking at their names, right? So that's why they are called also the semantic elements, which again I will explain in upcoming question. But before HTML5, we used the div element for this purpose. But after HTML5 introduced, these elements are more accurate and more meaningful elements in HTML. Okay. For example, every website homepage must have some header for the title or name of the website, right? For example, an e-commerce website name. Then the main content under which the different sections will be there. So for example, on e-commerce website, different categories of products are placed in different sections. So that's why sections are very important. Finally, at the bottom of the page, you will find the contact information, address, support, FAQs. That is under the footer element of the page, right? So that is the basic structure of almost every website, and the output in the browser will be something like this. Therefore, the role of these elements is header, main, section, footer are semantic elements used to define the layout and structure of a web page in a meaningful and organized way. And these elements are very important from SEO point of view also. Okay, so that is the short story about these elements, why these are so important. And here is the brief description of all of these elements. Very easy to understand, same what I already explained just now. That's it. What is the role of heading tags in HTML? How does it impact SEO? Let's first understand why we need headings. For example, this is the text. But is this text readable or well organized as a user? Can you understand? No, right? Now I will use the header text like this to organize the same text using H1, H2, H3 and up to H6 tags. And the output will be something like this in the browser. You can see now that it is well organized and you can understand the hierarchy, right? In e-commerce applications like Amazon, we also have a similar kind of categorizations. Under electronics, we have the subheading mobile, then we have the heading mobile, Samsung mobile, and so on. So below every header, also you can add some paragraph content, like the information, the details about the product. So that's the importance of the heading tags. Finally, what are heading tags? Heading tags in HTML are used to define the headings of sections within a web page. Now let's see the top 3 uses of heading tags. First is obviously organization and readability. Heading tags organize the content in a better way, making it easier for users to understand the organization of the page. Then the second use is SEO, search engine optimization. Search engines like Google use headings to understand the importance of the content. Okay, H1 will be given more importance as compared to H2. Okay, so for example, 2 websites have same electronics tag in their website, but in one website it is with the H1 tag electronics, and the other website has it in electronics, text in the div or H2 or H3 tags. Then if user will search electronics on Google, then H1 tag website will rank high as comparison to the second website. Okay, H1 is a high priority in SEO. Again, there are also other important factors for SEO, but this is one of them. Also, do not overwrite H1 tags, otherwise there will be negative impact on SEO. Okay. Third and last use of heading is styling and layout. For example, the same CSS can be applied to all H1 tags to show their importance and the uniformity and the resemblance, like they are the top headings H1. For example, all H1 tags on your web page can be of the red color. Okay, so that will, what it will do, it will make your page more consistent, right? Great, that's all about the information about the headings. What is the difference between section and article elements? These are two very similar elements, but they have one big difference. Okay, here is the code of section, and maybe you already know this section like definition. The section element is a generic container used to group related contents together. Okay, for example, in e-commerce website, see how we have one section for mobile products, another for books, right? That is how section can work. Similarly, we can have many more sections for many products on web page, right? But if you now see the code of article, then it looks something different. It's look like an offer or banner of sale, right? For example, here in the Amazon, offer banner at the top of the web page above the product section. So this is an article. This is an article which is unique and which is different from sections. So that's an example. The definition is the article element represent a self-contained or independent piece of content with a title and content. For example, other than this, like a blog post, a news article, a forum post, a comment, an offer, those are the examples of article, which purpose is slightly different, not slightly, basically significantly different from the sections. Okay, that's the answer. Congrats on finishing the last chapter. Where there is a will, there is a way. Now here we have some more questions about HTML elements. Here are the questions, and if you can closely observe these terms, root, parent, child, empty, semantic, block, inline elements, then these are not direct elements, okay, like div, span, h1, h2. But these are categories in which we divide our HTML elements. For example, electronics is a category, but mobile is the actual product, right? Categories are very important in order to understand the behavior of elements, okay? Same behavior elements are kept in one category, okay? So let's start with the first question. What are root, parent, child, and nested elements? Here you can see an HTML document with all type of elements. First of all, root, parent, child, and nested are the categories of elements. HTML, head, title, body, and div are the actual elements. For example, electronic is the product category, but mobile is the actual product, right? Now let me represent the same code here in child and parent format. The first one is the root element. The root element is the highest level element in any HTML document, okay? In HTML5, the root element is HTML. Second, a parent element is an element that contains other child elements. For example, head is a parent element for meta, title, link, and script. And body is the parent element for the div element. The third is the child and nested element. A child or nested is an element that is contained within or inside a parent element, okay? So for example, h1 and ul are the child elements of the div element. Also child and nested are same thing, okay? One more important thing. One element can be a parent and a child at the same time. For example, div is the child element of the body element, right? But it is also the parent for the h1 and ul elements, right? So that's it, and whatever I have explained, that has been written in the simplest manner in this next slide, if someone wants to refer the book later. What are empty elements? Let's see the code first. Here you can see the title element of HTML. We have the opening tag, right? And then we have the content and then complete closing tag with this slash and element name title, right? So, but now if you see the link and meta elements inside the head element, they do not have content between starting and closing tags like in title, right? Just a slash and element is closed. These types of elements are called what? Empty elements. Other than link and meta, like elements in body like image, input, break, these elements are also empty elements. The conclusion is an empty element is an HTML in an element that does not need content between opening and closing tags, okay? And it does not have separate closing tag. For example, title element need content, but image does not. Second point is empty elements are also called self-closing or void elements because they do not have, as I said, separate closing tags. And last point is, here are some more examples of empty elements in HTML5. All these are empty elements and they do not need separate closing tags or content. Okay, that's the answer of this question. What are semantic elements? Is div a semantic element? Semantic elements are elements by looking at those names, at their names only, you can easily tell what kind of information or content is present inside them. For example, here are the top 5 semantic elements. We already discussed these elements in the previous questions, right? And here is the code for them. Here you can easily assume header will have the website header, main will have the main section, footer will have the address and other things, right? So the definition of semantic element is semantic elements in HTML are elements that provide meaning to the content they contain. For example, if you are using header semantic element, then you know it will contain the header information. Content is very much related to the element name, right? So that's why they are semantic elements. But can you tell me what kind of information this div element can have? No, you can't tell, right? Therefore, div is not a semantic element because div is a general purpose, a structural element. It provides the structure. It's not a semantic. It doesn't provide any meaning to the content, okay? Great. Now let me show you some more semantic elements, and here are the top 10 semantic elements with their simple definition. Not all of them are very important, so that's why I'm not covering them in detail. But yes, you can just pause the video and go through them at least once so that you can have a slight idea of them. Okay, so that's the answer to this question. Now here is a short and tricky question. Can HTML tags be written in uppercase? Like this is the code, you can see all the tags are here uppercase. Is it possible or is it good? The answer is yes, it is possible, but it is not a good practice. Okay, so here is the answer. Yes, HTML tags are not case sensitive, therefore can be written in uppercase, lowercase, or the combination of both. But it is not recommended as per the standards, so always use lowercase tags only. Okay, otherwise what will happen after you leave the project, other developers will have a hard time to understand your code. Okay, so that's the gap, so always use lowercase. What are the three differences between block level and inline elements? Now, there is another category of HTML elements, and maybe you already know this. Here you can see some block level elements. What are block level elements? Block level create block of content, blocks. Okay, that's why their name is block level. So for example, div, paragraph, h1, ul, li table. So are all block level elements. Okay, then what are inline elements then? Here you can see some inline elements. Strong or anchor, these are what? Inline elements. Inline elements length depends on their content length only. That is the definition. So for example, this span, anchor, strong, em, emphasis, image are all inline elements. If you can see, mostly inline elements are like embedded inside other elements, right? So that is the other difference. By default, block level elements start on a new line, whereas inline elements do not start on a new line. Third difference is you can set both width and height of a block level element, but you cannot set width and height for the inline elements. Okay, in their style. So because their height and width is dependent on the content, the length of the content. Okay, so you cannot set. So that is the answer of this question. List all the block level and inline elements in HTML. So here is the top 10 block level elements in HTML. All these header tags, header element, div, footer, and are all block elements. Okay, I explained the purpose of most of them in other questions. Okay, but here is the one line simplest summary I have written here. Maybe you can refer it later. And then here are 10 more. So article, aside, block on. The point why I'm sharing is just to give you an idea of these block level elements. You need not to remember all these elements, and I am also not going to read all the one-liner statements, because you can do it by yourself. Okay, but you should be aware of these some of these elements. Okay, so that is all about the list of block level elements. We have 10 and we have 10 more then. Similar to the list of block elements, here is the list of 20 inline elements in HTML, and the simplest one-line summary of each element, which is very easy to understand and even remember also. You can go through it with your own speed. Okay, so most of them, especially most important ones, I already covered in this course. Span is strong, span, emphasis small. Okay, after this there are 10 more. Break, select, time, small. So all these are inline elements in HTML. That's it. Congrats on finishing the last chapter. Many people buy running shoes, but they don't run. They buy books, but they don't read. They buy courses, but they don't finish. Therefore, continuing and finishing what you have started is very important. All right, here we are going to see questions about different attributes of elements like ID, style, class, attribute. Okay, so let's start with the first question then. What are HTML attributes? what are the types of HTML attributes? Very important question. For example, here is an anchor element. And we already know an HTML will have the opening, closing tags and content in between. Okay, that we know. But here you can see inside the element we have few more things. ID, class, href. So what are these? These are the HTML attributes. So definition is HTML attributes provide additional information about HTML elements. Okay. For example, ID attribute giving information about the unique ID for this anchor tag. Class telling the CSS class name, and href telling the URL link which will be open in browser when you click on this hyperlink, right? Now the question is, what are the two types of attributes? So first are common or global attributes like class ID, style, or data asterisk. So these are common and applicable for all the attributes. That's why they are called common or global attributes. They are applicable to each and every element of the HTML. Now the second type are the specific attributes. For example, href, which is specific for hyperlinks only, okay, for anchor elements only. Then the source and alt for images only it is applicable. Width and height attribute for many elements it is, but not for all. So similarly, there are other attributes which are specific, some are global. So that is the two types of elements, okay. Great, this was the short story about attributes. What are the ID, style and class attributes of an element? More important thing is when to use what. Now maybe you already know these attributes, but let's just revise quickly. These are like the most important elements and most common attributes of any element. Here you can see the HTML body with h1 tag and the ID attribute. The first answer is the ID attribute is used to uniquely identify an element on a page. This is very important because when you refer to any element in JavaScript or CSS, then there you will use the ID attribute only to get or identify the element, okay, to map the element with HTML. For example, if you know document.getElement by ID, so pass the ID as the parameter in JavaScript, right? The point is, the primary purpose of ID attribute is to allow JavaScript and CSS to target and manipulate specific elements because they are unique, right? They can identify the elements. The second important attribute of any element is style. And here is the code of a paragraph with the style attribute. Simple definition is a style attribute allows you to apply inline styles directly to the individual, remember, individual element. Now because of style, the color of this paragraph will be blue. But what if you want to apply the same style not just individual but to multiple elements? So one way is to copy paste the same style in multiple elements, right? But that will make your HTML bad looking, right? So then you have to use the class attribute like this. See, two paragraph elements with the same class name highlighted. And you can define the common class style highlighted in the head section under this style tags like this. Then the same style will be applicable to both elements. The point is, class attribute is used to group together multiple elements that share common styles, okay? That is the benefit of class. And yes, class attributes are recommended for large website, not inline styles, okay? Also, external style sheets are used for more instead of these internal style sheets, which I will explain in detail in the CSS part, the external style sheet part. So that's the answer of this question. A short question, or you can say a scenario based question is here. What will happen if two elements have the same IDs? Like this in the code where the div and the paragraph have the same IDs. Now what will happen? Maybe in the browser there is no direct impact, okay, but it will be considered as invalid HTML. What does it mean to have invalid HTML? Invalid HTML means it can lead to unexpected behavior on your web page. So for example, problems can occur in the CSS styling and when you are interacting with the IDs of the elements in the JavaScript. So then you are targeting some element, and because there are multiple IDs, so it is going something wrong. So because of the multiple style will be changed, because if you are targeting to change the style of one element, and because of same IDs, multiple elements IDs multiple elements style will be changed, and that is not what you expected, right? And the same can happen with JavaScript also. So always make sure that all the elements IDs are unique from each other, and the same detail has been written here so that you can refer it later. How to specify multiple classes for a single element? What is the style precedence? Okay, now here is the code. You can see two classes. And how do you apply both of these classes to one single element? Okay, here is the simple implementation, and simply add a space separated list of classes names with this class attribute. And now both the class styles will be applied to the div element. But there is one catch here. What will happen if both the classes update the same property style, like both class 1 and class 2 have color property with the different color names? Which one will be applied to this second div element? In that case, the style defined in the last class will take the precedence and will be the priority and will be applied. Okay, so like this in the browser, for the second div, which text is multiple classes, its color will be green, which is set in where second and the last class 2, right? So that is the answer to this question, and the things I have explained are also posted here for reference later. What are data attributes in HTML? Now we already know that we have attributes for elements like ID, class, etc., right? These attributes are inbuilt, which means they are provided by HTML itself, right? Similarly, we can define our own custom attributes for elements in HTML, which we call what? Data attributes. And like this code, we can add them to the list of attributes of an element. So 2 points from here. First, data attributes in HTML provide a way to add custom data attributes to add additional information to elements. For example, you may need to add some extra information that does not fit into the existing normal attributes. Okay, then we need data attributes. The second point is that is the only when we need data attributes. The second point is different, and that is very simple. Data attributes are specified using this dash prefix, data dash prefix, hyphen prefix. That is a convention, or you can say it's a standard. Now the question is, how do we access these data attributes in JavaScript? That is not the part of this because JavaScript is slightly different, but let me show you. And like from the normal elements, like this, you can see we can access normal attributes like ID directly, right? But for data attributes can be accessed by this dataset property in JS. And that is the third point also. For this code, this will be the output on the console. And see, the data info attribute value will be have accessed successfully. So that is the answer to this question. And yes, I already covered this query selector and other concepts already in my JavaScript interview course. That's altogether a different course, but because that is very much related to JavaScript, not HTML. Keep going, no matter the speed, no matter rejections or obstacles, just keep going until you get there. All right, in this chapter, we will see questions on HTML links and navigation. They are very important in web application for navigating from one part of the website to the another. And here is the list of the questions. We will explore 5 types of link, then absolute and relative URLs, then nav elements, fragment identifier, base element, and some other questions. Maybe you already know some of them, but at least revise at least one time. So maybe you can increase the playback speed of the video. So let's start with the first question. What are the 5 types of links in HTML? Alright, maybe all of us know the basic anchor element denoted by this A tag, but there are 4 more types of links, and here is the list. Now let me quickly show you the code one by one, and most importantly the purpose of each one. Anchor link is the most basic one, denoted by A tag like this. It is mostly used for navigating from one page to another. So when you click ABC, you will be redirected to this href URL. Simple. And this ABC is the text or this link of this link. The second type of link is external resource link, denoted by link. It is used in the head section to connect to an external resource like a style sheet or a JavaScript file like this. Here rel will specify the type of the relationship, okay, and href will have the location or path of this file. Then the third type of the link is the image link. If you click on this image on the web page, then the above URL mentioned in href will be opened. So an image link is used to create a clickable image that leads to another web page. The next one is the bookmark link, or we also call it named anchor. This is a new one. Here if you click on the go to section 1 link, which is href is started with this hash symbol, then the page will navigate or scroll okay, to the section 1 part of the same page. This is a very good link for navigating in the same page. That is its purpose. The fifth and the last one is the email link like this. Very simple. It creates a clickable link, and when you click on this send email, this will open the user's default email client, okay, and in the to box or input or text box the email will be pre-filled automatically. Great. That was some information about the different kinds of links we have. And here is the detail which I already explained, and this is just for the revision purpose. What is the difference between absolute and relative URLs? Let's first explore the absolute URLs. Here you can see the code, and if you notice, here all the URLs are full and complete. Full website name, full FTP URL, full mail to information, right? These are all the examples of absolute URLs. So here are 2 points about absolute URLs. First, absolute URLs provide the complete web address of a resource. Agree? Second, absolute URLs are typically used to link resources on different websites, okay, external resources. As shown is in the example, if I click any link, then that will take me outside the current website, right? That is why absolute URLs are used to connect to external websites. Now let's see the example of relative URLs. And here is the example. First URL, just page.html. It's not the full URL. Where is the website name here? Now this type of incomplete URLs are not absolute. The browser will know that these URLs are incomplete, and therefore the browser will consider them as the relative URL and handle it differently. For relative URL, browser will try to find the links internally in the same website in relation with this current HTML document. Getting my point? For example, suppose this current HTML or page name is index.html, okay, and that is inside the example folder. Now browser will look for the page.html inside the example folder only. Relative, right? That's why it is called relative URL. Here, directory and folder are the same thing. Then this next link means, for example, this example directory has again a subfolder or subdirectory inside it which name is sub. Now HTML will look for this page.html inside the subfolder, okay? And in the third case, the page.html is directly inside the root directory of the website, not inside any specific folder, okay? Similarly, all the below URLs are related to your current website only. Now, here are two conclusions about relative URLs. Relative URLs specify the location of a resource in relation to the current document. Full URL is not required. Second, they are mostly used when linking resources within the same website, whereas you remember absolute are used to link outside the current website. What is the purpose of the nav element in HTML? Let me show you the code first, and here it is. Here you can see we have this nav element, and under that we have the list. The output of this list will be something like this. Now, even if you do not use the nav element here, the list will remain and displayed as same. Okay. The question is then, why do we require or need this nav or navigation element, right? Answer is because it provides semantic clarity. Let me explain. For example, above we have the header element. From a functional point of view, it is also doing nothing, but it is good for semantic clarity. Semantic clarity meaning if tomorrow some other developer or any search engine like Google will crawl or scan or read your website from SEO perspective, then they can easily understand the structure of your website if the developer have used semantic elements like header, nav, footer, and section elements. Okay, this inside list can be a list of anything and like a list of products or anything, but putting all inside the navigation elements means Google will easily understand the SEO, that the links inside the clickable are for like they are clickable and they are for navigation purpose. Okay, that's the importance of the nav element, and the same points which I have explained are written here for later reference. That's it. What is a fragment identifier in a URL? It is a very useful concept, and that is nowadays used in almost every website in HTML. For example, suppose we have two links on our web page like this. Here you can see that this link is preceded by this hash symbol. That means this section verse is an ID of a section element that present in this same HTML like this. And if you click on this go to section 1 link, then the page will be scrolled or navigated to that section. Okay, let me show you the video here. So when I clicked go to section 1 link, the page is moved to section 1 position, and when I click on go to section 2 link, the page is moved to section 2 position. Okay, now you understand almost every website is using this fragment identifier concept, right? Finally, the definition is a fragment identifier is used to navigate to a specific section of the same web page, and a fragment identifier is preceded by hash symbol. That's it. What is the purpose of the base element in HTML? As always, let's see the example first. Here is the code, and here is the base element with the href URL inside the head section, right? Now, what is the use of it? Here is the body, and you can see two hyperlinks here. But in these hyperlinks, only the page name is present without the website name, right? Now in this case, if HTML or browser will find the base element in the head section, then it will prefix the base element, this URL, to the relative hyperlinks in the page. For example, now if you click this page1.html, then this window will be opened. And see, page1.html will be automatically prefixed by the base element, base URL abc.com. Okay, and the same will happen with this page 2 also. So that is the purpose of the base element, which URL is used as a common base URL for all the other relative URLs in your web page. Got it? So same thing I have written here if someone will refer the book later. Yes. Here are you on your next milestone. No big web application can exist without data from the database. And the best way to display the big and huge data in web application is through HTML lists and tables. So here are the 5 questions, and from them we are going to cover like type of list, nested list, table elements, etc. So let's begin and accomplish this milestone quickly. What are the different type of lists in HTML? Okay, so we have 3 type of lists in HTML: ordered, unordered list, and description list. Let's see the code of the first ordered list. Here we use OL tag, and that stands for ordered list. Now in every list we have one or multiple li tags. Here li stands for list item, okay? And here is the browser screenshot for the same ordered list. And if you notice, list items are ordered and numbered like 1, 2, 3 by default. So that's why we call them what? Ordered list, because the items here are ordered in a sequence. The next type of list is an unordered list, which is the most used and the most popular kind of list. For this, we use the UL tag, which stands for unordered list. And here is the browser screenshot of list. And this time it is without any number or order, okay? Then the last type of list is a description list. Here DL tag for description list, or we call it definition list also, okay, sometimes. So then DT is the definition term, and this DD is the definition description. Here, by looking at the output, you can easily understand how this list is able to cover list items and then the sub items, sublist. So DT is the item term 1 and DD is the sub item description 1. Then again DT is the term 2 and DD is the sub item description 2, and so on. That kind of item sub item listing is the purpose of a description or definition list, okay? So great. Now here is the theory and conclusion. An ordered list is a list where the items are numbered or ordered in a specific sequence. Second, an unordered list is a list where the items are marked with bullets. Last but not the least, a description list is used to display a list of terms along with their corresponding descriptions or definitions. Okay, that's it. Here is a short answer question. What is a nested list in HTML? Here you can see the code and here is the output. You can easily understand. Here we have a main ordered list of technologies which is starting from top to bottom, and then inside it we have 2 list items, backend and front end, and then inside the list the item backend again we have unordered list of Java.NET Node. Similarly for the second list item. So this kind of arrangement is called a nested list, where one list is inside the another list, like parent child, okay? The whole point is a nested list in HTML is a list that is placed within another list item. Got it? Simple. What are table elements? What are table advantages and disadvantages? Tables are very important HTML elements to create a table structure with headers, columns, and rows. In order to create a table, you have to first use the table element like this. Then you have to add the first row of the table by using the tr element. And then if you need a header in your table, you can use the th element in the first row like this. And the table will be like this in your browser, okay, with the header. Then you can add the second row of the table. This time inside the row you have to add the td element, which stands for table data, or we also call it table cell sometime. So like this the row will be added, and you can add more and more rows and data as per your requirements. Finally, the table is ready, and yes, table header is there at the top, is optional here. Now let's conclude the table elements. Table is the container for the entire table. Clear? Table row is used to define a row in the table. TH is used to represent the column headers. Then TD is used to represent the regular cells in a table. Now let's see what are the advantages of the table. Tables are a very powerful tool for styling and displaying structure data. For example, Excel, if you know, is a very good example, right? But there is some disadvantage of table also. Tables multiple column structure is not good for mobile devices because then it is not responsive. Laptops have a horizontal display, but mobiles have a long display, right? Therefore, if displaying multiple columns of a table, which means horizontal, right? Horizontal, it is like you have to move left, right, and it is not a good display for mobile. Therefore, for websites which are mostly opened in mobiles, table is not a very good idea. So rather use Bootstrap for mobiles, okay, which I will explain later. That's the answer of this question. What is the call span attribute in HTML? If you see this table HTML code, then here in the first row we have 3 headers, right? But in the second row we have only 2 columns. How? Actually, if you set the table set property call span equal to 2, then this particular cell is going to merge the 2 cells into a single cell. Okay, so that is call span. If call span is 3, then it will merge all the 3 cells into one. Okay, so span column will expand basically. Okay, so here in the browser screenshot you can see how row 1 merge cell 1 and cell 2 together because the value of call span is 2. Sometimes it is required in tables, yes, this merging of the cells. For that we can use call span. The conclusion is the call span attribute is used to merge multiple cells horizontally into a single cell. Remember, horizontally, not vertically. And call span attribute is applicable to th and td, not to tr. You cannot merge multiple rows with call span. Okay. What is the best way to add a border to a table, column and cell? Here is a table HTML code, one table, then 1, 2, 3 rows, and each rows with 2 columns, right? Now, in order to add any style or border to the table, the best way is to set the table element style. Okay, that can be done in the same style tags in the head section or in a separate CSS file also. Then in the same way for tr, th and td like this, this will be the output in the browser like this. The whole point is setting the common style, okay, for table tr, th and td elements. Then what will happen? All the multiple tables on your web page will follow a very consistent same styling and same formatting, which will then look good, right? So that is the answer of this question. Now, after completing the questions from HTML, here are the chapters from CSS. First, we will cover questions on CSS basics, then selectors in CSS, then questions about layout, positioning, and responsive design in CSS. Here is the first chapter, and here is the list of CSS questions, mostly based on the implementation of CSS in HTML. So even if you know them, I recommend still revise them at least once. Maybe you can increase the playback speed of the video. So let's start with the first question. What is CSS? What are the 5 ways to implement CSS in HTML? Let's understand with the help of code. If this is your HTML, and here you can see we have applied different styles to the different elements, right? Because of the applied styles, the elements will look something like this. This coloring and the format change in the presentation of HTML is because of the applied styles only, and that is what is CSS. Remember, HTML is just a markup language. What it does? To structure the document with the help of elements. JavaScript is a scripting and programming language, whereas CSS is a style sheet language. Styling means setting the HTML elements look, color, font size, width, height, etc. Okay, because HTML is just the content in black and white format. CSS is responsible for formatting and making the HTML more beautiful and presentable. The conclusion is CSS, which stands for Cascading Style Sheets, is a style sheet language used to control the presentation of web pages. Remember. Now there are 5 ways to implement CSS in HTML, and here are they: inline styles, internal style sheet, external style sheet, import rules, and CSS preprocessors. In the upcoming questions, we will explore all of them. What is inline style in CSS? When to use it in real applications? Here are the 5 ways to implement CSS in HTML, and the first and the simplest one is inline styles. Here is the HTML code, and as you can see H1N paragraph, we have the style attribute. When we set the style along with the element itself, then it is called inline style. So 2 points quickly about inline styles. Inline styles apply styles directly to the individual HTML elements using the style attribute. The second point is this method is suitable, like when to use in real application, it is suitable for applying styles to a single element only. So for applying the same style to multiple elements, we have other ways of implementing CSS. Okay, so it is basically for single individual elements, and mostly in very small application we can use the style attribute, this way of styling, inline style. What is internal style sheet in HTML? When to use it in real application? Again, very simple. Here are the 5 ways. The second way is through internal style sheet, and this is the way to implement an internal style sheet in your code. Here we will place the style element inside the head section, and inside it we can set the style properties, right? Here div represent the tag name, para with dot represent the class name. So once the style is set, then this is the way to implement the style in the HTML elements. Nothing special. And the div style above will be applied to all the div tags on your current web page. Dot para applied to any element which you have the class equal to para. Okay. So finally, 2 points about internal style sheet. Internal style sheet can be implemented by adding the style element in the head section of the HTML. Okay. Next point is when to use it in real application. This method is suitable for applying common style for multiple elements. Okay. But this method is again suitable for smaller projects, not very big, because what will happen, adding more and more styles here in the inside your HTML will make your HTML document very big and complex, which will not look good then. Okay. Therefore, big projects we have the external style sheets. That is what we will look next. What is external style sheet in CSS? When to use it in real application? Now, this is the most popular way of implementing CSS in HTML. Here are the 5 ways, and this is the external style sheet. In this case, you will write styles in a separate CSS file like this. Now, how to link this with the HTML? If this is your HTML, then inside the head section, you have to use this link element. And then you have to set the rel attribute to style sheet, because CSS is a style sheet language, and the href attribute to the path with the name of above CSS style sheet. Okay. So now the above CSS file is linked to this element HTML, and the HTML here, like H1 paragraph, will start using the above styles, the H1 and P styles. Okay. Finally, 2 points about external style sheet. In external style sheet, a separate CSS file is created with .css extension and linked in the HTML file using the link element. Okay. Second point is, this is the most common and recommended way to implement CSS in big project. Okay. Now going forward, I will always not show you this link element here due to space issue for upcoming questions. But if you are coding it by yourself, then always include this link with the CSS I am presenting in the upcoming questions. Okay. What are the 5 advantages of external style sheet? Here is the external style sheet example, and we know this is the most popular way. But now the question is why? Here are the reason, and you can say 5 advantages also of using the external style sheet. Okay. First is separation of content HTML from presentation style. Now, because of this separation, your HTML will be very lightweight. Okay. Because the CSS styles will be in the another file, which is also then good for the structure of your website. The second advantage is the reusability of CSS class in multiple elements and in multiple web pages also. So yes, multiple elements across the website can use the same style from the external style sheet. So internal style sheet is only specific to the page, but this external is common to the entire website, right? Third advantage is keep things organized and structured. That is the obvious advantage, right? Fourth advantage is it adapts to different devices. Then fifth advantage is this improves the website speed, because then your HTML will be very lightweight, and that's why when the website will load, the speed of the loading of the HTML pages will increase a little bit. Okay. So, all right, that was the advantages list of the external style sheet as compared to the internal style sheets, and also to the better than the inline styles. This is a very short question. How do you include CSS in a web page or HTML? This is like a indirect questions, or sometimes they ask questions in a different way. So, but I already covered this in previous questions, and these are the three ways. First is by implementing the external style sheet. We can include by using the link element in the head section. Second is by using the internal style sheet by using the style element in the head section. And third is inline styles. Apply styles directly to individual element using the style attribute, but this is the least recommended way. How to implement CSS using the import rule? This is one of the 5 ways to implement CSS in HTML. In this case, you have an HTML file like this, and there you have the link element with the style sheet reference, which is main.css right now. Now look at the body of the main.css file here carefully. This CSS file will have its own style properties, but it is also importing the styles from an external CSS file using this import statement by setting its URL here of external file. And here is the external.css file. Now all the styles of the external.css like h1 will also be available in the main.css. That is the purpose of this import URL, okay? Then the same styles will be applied to the main HTML file also. All the h1 tags here color will be blue, okay? So this is the import. Finally, two main points about the import rule. Import rule is to include an external CSS in the main CSS file, okay? But the second point is that this method is very less commonly used due to some potential performance issues. Performance issue because this kind of dependency of one CSS file on another CSS file will make things complex, okay? Now the question is then why we created this imported rule when there are issues and performance issue with it. Because sometimes in a project there are existing CSS files which we cannot change because they are used in multiple projects, okay, for example. So we cannot change them. Then better we should import them, and then we should write another CSS file, and there we should import, or we should import multiple files in a CSS file and then use it. So basically in big projects we need such kind of scenarios. What are CSS preprocessors? What is SCSS? CSS preprocessor is also one way to implement CSS, and this is slightly more complex in comparison to the previous ways. In this case, the CSS processors, we have to create one .css file like this in our project. For that, we have to install npm and sass also. And SCSS is a type of CSS preprocessor only, okay? And what will happen? This SCSS will be first converted into a CSS file, and that converted file will then be referred in the link element of the HTML file. Getting my point? Now, to relate it, to remember it, just focus on this name CSS preprocessor. Its English meaning is before CSS or pre-CSS. There will be a file of type SCSS or any other type which will then be processed to CSS file. Get related, right? That's good. So that's why the English is important, and that's why this implementation is called CSS preprocessor. because we have a file SCSS which will be processed in the CSS file. Now the important question is why we need this kind of CSS pre-processing or SCSS. Instead, we already have those direct normal CSS file. Why we need it? The answer is CSS preprocessors are scripting languages like SCSS. This is a scripting language that provide additional syntax and features that are not available in traditional CSS. Okay, so for example, variables, loops, and conditional statements. These are not available in normal CSS, but they are available in SCSS. For example, if you see the SCSS code, then here you can see we have defined variables in this SCSS file. Then you can use the variable base font for calculating the heading element font size dynamically. That is the purpose of the variables, right? Now, when the SCSS is converted to CSS, there you will receive the fixed multiplied font size. Now, this variable declaration and setting is not possible directly here in this CSS. Therefore, sometimes we need SCSS for big applications. Then we can also have loops, conditional statements, which are not possible in normal CSS. So that's why CSS preprocessors are essentials and we need them in some scenarios. Great, that was the first point. And we already know the second point, that is SCSS is a type of CSS preprocessor only. Yes, there are other types also, which I will just share in the next question. But you have got the high level idea about what is SCSS and most importantly, why we need SCSS, right? Here is a very short question. What are the three types of CSS preprocessors? The first type CSS preprocessors we already know, and that is SCSS, which stands for sassy CSS. Also we call it SAS, which stands for syntactically awesome style sheets, and the file extension for them is .scss. This is the first type of preprocessor. Second type is less, and the file extension is also .less. This is the second type. The third kind of CSS preprocessors are stylus, and the extension is .styl. There are maybe some more types, but I am not going into very much detail about this because they are like then a separate topic from normal CSS, and it is very much too much time taking. But yes, now you have the high level idea like, okay, what are the three types of CSS preprocessors? Great, and many congratulations for reaching the last chapter of HTML, CSS and Bootstrap. And if I am the interviewer, then I will hire you directly by looking at your willingness, determination and hard work after you reach this point. Okay, so after HTML, CSS, the last chapter is Bootstrap. Here we will cover these questions: Bootstrap advantages, grid system, call classes, and the most important, Bootstrap components. Even if you are new to Bootstrap, still you can easily understand all those concepts in these questions. So let's start with the first question. What is Bootstrap? What are the other 5 responsive design frameworks other than Bootstrap? Very simple. Suppose you have a website that opens on a laptop, something like this. Here we have the website header, and then below we have 3 section columns side by side. Now Bootstrap is the CSS framework that if you will use, then the same website will open something like this on the mobile device. Here you can see that the columns that were horizontally aligned on the laptop are now automatically aligned vertically. The main thing is that you do not have to write a single line of CSS code for this responsiveness. You just have to include the Bootstrap framework by adding this URL in your HTML and some of its classes. So what's the conclusion? Bootstrap is a popular open source front-end CSS framework which provides responsiveness and mobile-first CSS. Why mobile first? Because now mobile users are more than big screens users, right? Now, remember that Bootstrap is not the only framework for responsiveness. You can also use other responsive frameworks like Foundation, Bulma, Semantic UI, Materialize, and Tailwind, but use only one at a time for your website, okay? And Bootstrap is the most popular one these nowadays. What are the 5 advantages of using Bootstrap? Now, this is a bit theoretical question, but it is important. Let's see the advantages one by one. First advantage is rapid development of website if you are using Bootstrap. Yes, Bootstrap provides a wide range of ready-to-use components like navigation bars, buttons, forms, models, and many more. This saves developers time and effort in writing code for them from scratch, okay? Second advantage is, of course, responsive design. Bootstrap is built with a mobile-first approach, meaning it prioritizes the designing for smaller screens first and then scales up for larger screens. This ensures websites with Bootstrap is responsive for every device. Third advantage is cross-browser compatibility, meaning Bootstrap provides a consistent set of styles and components across different browsers. Okay, so which helps in reducing the cross-browser compatibility issues which are there with other CSS, normal CSS, right? Fourth advantage is large community and support. Yes, there are plenty of resources, documentations, tutorials, forums available for assistance on the internet, which makes Bootstrap development very easy. Fifth and last advantage is accessibility, meaning Bootstrap incorporates best practices for web accessibility. Following web accessibility, you can create websites that are even usable for people with the disabilities. Okay, that is the meaning of accessibility. Great, that is the answer, and here are all the details of the advantages which I already explained, just for the later reference. What are the 2 ways to include the Bootstrap framework for your website? There are 2 ways. First, put the link to Bootstrap of Bootstrap CDN in the head section like this. Here in your HTML head, add this link element and set the attribute href URL value to the Bootstrap CDN URL. Then what will happen? Bootstrap classes will be available in your project. And this is the simplest and the easiest way. But remember, your website must always be available on the internet. Otherwise, this URL will not work. The benefit of this way is to get the new features and new versions of the Bootstrap. You just have to change the Bootstrap version number here and just do a simple test. But the disadvantage is, if this URL is down for some reason, which I think it is never, but in that case, your website will face problems with the elements and classes that it is using from the Bootstrap framework, okay? Now, the second way to use Bootstrap in your website is to download all the Bootstrap files and then add them locally in your project, so that your website is no longer dependent on the internet. Yes, this is a bit difficult to do, and also for version changes you have to upload the files again and again. The benefit of this way is that even if the Bootstrap URL is down, Bootstrap website is down, even in that case your website will not be impacted because you already have all the files in your project. Anyways, normally I prefer the URL way, the first way for Bootstrap in my own projects, but it depends. Explain the grid system in Bootstrap. The grid system is the basis of responsiveness in Bootstrap. See this? As per the grid system, you can use 6 types of column structures for your website. First, a 12-column grid structure for big screens like laptops. Now, Bootstrap will automatically convert these 12 horizontal columns or cells into 12 vertical cells on smaller screens like mobile, okay? So that is responsiveness, right? Similarly, a 6-column grid website for laptop will be converted to 1 vertical column grid in mobiles. And the same goes with 4, 3, 2-column grid structures. Okay, so finally, what is the grid system in Bootstrap? The grid system is a 12-column layout and is designed to adapt to various screen sizes. Now, let me show you the conversion how it will happen for a 2-column grid and how it will be displayed on the mobile device. So if you have a 2-column grid like this for website for laptop big screen, then Bootstrap convert this 2-column in the mobile like this. And that is the whole purpose of the grid system in Bootstrap, right? Now the question is how to implement this. For that, you have to add the URL of the Bootstrap in the head of the HTML file, which I already explained in the previous question. Then in HTML, you have to use this class row for a single row. And inside that, for 2-column grids, you have to create 2 columns with call MD6 and call MD6 classes, okay? Now, if you are using 3-column grid structure, then you have to this call MD4 class 3 times. Similarly, 4-column grid structure go for call MD3 class 4 times, and 6-column grid you have to use call MD2 class 6 times. Now these classes row and call MD6 will be using the Bootstrap framework CSS for responsiveness for the conversion for mobile screens. Okay, so that's the thing. Great. I think now you have a good idea of the grid system in Bootstrap, right? What is the difference between call XS, SM, MD, LG and XL? The difference lies in the target screen size of the screen. For example, suppose we are targeting our website for laptops, like laptop is the ideal device for our website users. Okay, that's in our mind. Then we have to use call MD or SM classes of Bootstrap like this. See, in this case, these 2 columns will appear perfectly like this in the laptop, and in the mobile, it will be of course in the vertical manner. But if you use call XL class instead of this call MD class like this, then call XL means the target you are targeting for extra large screens. Then for call XL class, laptop screen is very smaller, and therefore the output will be something like this in the vertical format. See, in your laptop it is not right, which is wrong, right? So for call XL class, laptop is basically of small size, and it needs ideally a big screen like big TV or big screen or something to show it in the horizontal manner. So mostly the normal website target for call SM and call MD only, because these two target tablets or laptop screens. Now let's see the target screen for other classes. Here call access applies to extra small screens, phones. Then call SM applies to smaller screens. Call MD applies to medium screens, laptops. Call LG applies to large screens, larger desktops. And call XL applies to extra large screens, large TVs. That is the difference between all of them. What are Bootstrap components? What are the top 10 Bootstrap components? Now this is a bit theoretical question, but we should know the most important Bootstrap components. Bootstrap components are pre-designed elements that can be easily integrated into a web project. And here are the top 10 Bootstrap components which you can use in your websites even without developing them, just by including the Bootstrap framework in your website. First are buttons. Bootstrap buttons components allow you to create interactive button elements that user can click. Second are very popular nav bar. They provide navigational header that help users move through a website. It includes features like responsive behavior, drop-down menus, and support for brand logos and links, right? Then forms. Bootstrap form component make it easy to create structured and interactive forms, and validation will be very easy. Fourth is carousel. Carousel contents are like this, allows you to create a slideshow images of or other content. Okay, by clicking this left right arrows you can see the whole slideshow. Fifth are cards. Cards are flexible containers that can hold various types of content like text, images, titles, descriptions, right? Then we have progress bars, which displays the progress of a task or process. Mostly it is used to indicate the progress of file uploads, right? Then pagination components provides a set of navigation links to help user navigating through a large data set, like that is divided into multiple pages, right? Then spinners components are animated loading indicators like this that provides visual feedback to users while content is being loaded or processed. Then badges are there, small visual indicators that can use to display additional information, notification count. Great. Last are models, which I will cover in the next question. I know theory is not cool, but sometimes it is important to know, right? All right, if you reached here and completed all the questions and answers, then congratulations, because where there is a will, there is a way. My best wishes are with you, and if you have any questions, then feel free to ask me in the comments. Again, all the best for your interviews and career. And if you want to say all the best to me, then like and subscribe and just post the comment whenever you get the offer or job. Remember, only giving up can stop you now. So never give up.